Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Beyond Borders, a space for honest conversations where people, technology, art and mental health meet. We're here to explore what's changing, what matters and what it means to stay human in the middle of it all.
Hi guys, it's good to be back for another episode with Caroline and Pim. In today's episode, we will discuss an experience almost everyone deals with at some point in their lives, one that can interfere with your dedication and consistency to achieve goals. Let's talk about friendly support. It's interesting how you could spend late nights and weekends, survive burnout, and run through your savings to bring a project to life, develop an app, launch a brand, or start a business, and nothing would hit closer to home than the absence of support from family, friends, or loved ones. It may not be a big deal to some, but for others, it could be the foundation for them to give up, slow down, or walk away from their dreams. So, Caroline, Pim, thank you for joining me today. Let's explore how you can sustain growth even when there's no one to cheer you on. Welcome, Caroline and Pim. We'll just start off. Have you ever wondered why you would start a career, a business, or a journey towards growth and be surprised that the people closest to you feel so far away? The very people you thought would be rooting for you, shout you out, share your work, project, or business with others, or even celebrate with you, are nowhere to be found. While strangers and acquaintances champion your efforts like they were paid to do so. And I'm so eager to hear from you both, but I want to start off with Caroline. This might be a familiar experience for you, but in your experience, what do you think causes the absence of friendly support, even when you're an individual who's always cheering others on?
Super interesting topic, Sprenko, and very close to my heart. I think you already know that. But you know what? I think if I'm able to take a step back, it's a universal experience, isn't it? And I think that's what talking about it helps us understand because it can feel a very lonely place when it's happening to you. But you know that quiet ache when the people you love and care for don't quite see or celebrate what you're building. I think it's something that we do all feel. And I'll be honest, it's something that I have felt in my life for a long time. I couldn't understand why the people closest to me didn't always show up in the way that I expected. But over time, I've come to realize whatever their reasons, it shouldn't and it won't hold me back. It's my path, and I have to keep walking it, whether anyone's clapping or not. I think, in answer to your question, I think it's rarely, or I like to think it's rarely about malice. It's usually about discomfort. Maybe sometimes the people around us don't know how to support something that doesn't reflect their own path, or they may see our progress as a mirror for what they haven't done themselves yet. And so it's uncomfortable for them. I think there's also that subconscious fear element. Your growth, our personal growth can remind others of their own stuckness. So silence becomes a form of self protection, I think. And some people love you as long as you stay familiar. But when you start to grow, your rhythm changes, your energy shifts, and that can be quietly disturbing. It can unsettle relationships built on sameness. Does that make sense, Sprenko?
It does, especially, the part where you said, people can be scared of unfamiliarity and they're eager to put support when you're the same person and your growth can be quite maybe not scary but uncomfortable. That's
Mm.
very relatable. But I want to check in with Pim. Do you think friendship is not enough grounds to support each other as often as needed, or are there factors to be considered when supporting your friends and loved ones? Maybe we're overthinking it. What's your thought?
Well, I think friends in general, these good friends will support you in the way they can, but there's a difference between If you, for example, grew up in a family of entrepreneurs or a family who has no entrepreneurs and you're going to become the first entrepreneur, there's going to be a big difference on how they approach you and what they say and what they ask of you. Um, I think loved ones and family, etc., they really look at the risk instead of your goals. They want to make sure you can have a happy life and a smooth life. With entrepreneurship, that is not a guarantee at all. It can be a very bumpy road with all these risks coming and problems coming your way, and they want to, let's say, protect you from that, and that's very logical. Same with friends. And with friends is also, if you have a friend who is very entrepreneurial, uh, he will understand your thought process, he will understand what you're doing, and that makes it a lot easier. So there's more, let's say, smooth support in a way because it comes from their own thoughts. With friends who are not entrepreneurial and focuses on different things or not really work focus at all, um, they do support you, but it's not really a subject they want to keep talking about the whole day or the whole time you're at the pub or at a party. They want to have more of the, let's say, the more fun conversations, the joking conversations, but they still support you. They just say it in another way. Being a friend is there that you are there for the person or for your friend, no matter what happens. And I think that's what most people do when it comes to support, but there's always a difference in uh, what their own experience is with work, entrepreneurship, or whatever. So I think when it comes to support, and in that way, it just depends on the person who is your friend. Do you have to be at a lookout? Oh, I want my friends to support me no matter what in all that in my entrepreneurship. Well, I don't think that's a beginning point of finding good friends. Of course, you can search for it, but then you will be more like business friends. I think that's the difference as well. But for real friends, they will support you no matter what. They just have different approaches. What do you think about that, Caroline?
Yeah, just a quick comment from me. You've struck a chord and you made me smile. That bit you said about, your enthusiasm for something isn't necessarily shared by your loved ones. And when we're passionate about something, we want to talk about it. We want people to listen. And when they're not on the same wavelength, not entrepreneurs as the way you describe, we're just boring them rigid, and we have to understand that, I think. And that really, really struck a chord for me in terms of how we get more support. You think about us in Web3, Sprenko, you, myself. We support each other daily with various things. We don't have to, but we do. And we do because we share each other's enthusiasm for what we're building. And friends and families are not with us in Web3. They're not with us when we're writing a book. They're not with us when we're building a business, And so that is such an important point to make, Pim. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those statements. Go ahead, Pim.
it's also everybody is in different sectors. So, for example, my family is mostly in agriculture, so they know a lot about the plants, etc. I don't. So the chance that they will talk to me about the details of the chemicals or the preservations or the plants itself or the process in detail is very small, but they will talk to me about it in general forms. The same for me. I'm a trader. I can talk about all the patterns and volumes and whatever you can think of. The person who I will be talking to who has no experience in that sector will look at me if they're looking at a wall. So that's also a difference. Everybody has certain knowledge about certain sectors and are very familiar with certain ways. Not everybody is familiar with your ways or your sector. So that also makes a difference. Go ahead, Sprenko.
Yeah, interesting takes on there, and I'm just glad that we're discussing this conversation because it's natural to feel shocked, disappointed, heartbroken, even betrayed. But for me, though, I think two of the very poignant reasons, close circles, family, friends, loved ones, you know, sort of have an absence of support Either sometimes people can feel their support for you would mean one less support for themselves. It's not far-fetched to see those who feel the support they give you could be given to themselves. So they sort of withhold it. I'm curious to hear, your thoughts on that, Carolyn.
I think it's a really good point, Sprenko. It's not difficult to see, is it, that sometimes people see support as a finite resource, almost like if they give it to you, they'll have less for themselves, as you
Mm,
describe. But I also think there's another layer to it. Some people withhold support out of fear. They worry that if they endorse your dream and you fail, they feel responsible. Pim covered it with regards to trying to protect you from something because they don't share your mindset. They can't meet you there. So it's safer for them to wait until it's proven before they celebrate. So when
mm.
you're successful, when you've made it, they'll all come out of the woodwork and then they'll all be, eating champagne, drinking champagne and eating cake with you. But until you get there, they can't quite do it. I think, again, trying to be fair, it's rarely intentional, but it does reveal how much of our relationship with support is tied to comfort zones and fear of being wrong.
Yes, I absolutely love that one because, in Pim's earlier share, you said sometimes your loved ones wouldn't support because they don't understand your industry, your field, or what it is you're doing. And for me, it's never been that. I don't want to even know what it is. As long as you're passionate about it and I see that you are skilled at it, you want to thrive in there, I'll give you all my support in whatever capacity that I can give. But I cannot understand how, loved ones, family, friends can feel like, I want to hold back a bit. I hope they're doing the right thing. I don't want to be muddled up in whatever mess could arise if things, don't go according to plan. But it's a very interesting concept for me. Um, and I'd like us to poke that a little bit further. But I think one particular thing for me is how we can, in the absence of growth, support, right, still grow. How when people are not cheering on, when you don't have, a group of people supporting and pushing throughout the way, you still thrive. It would be curious to know how you both have navigated that along the way. Caroline, any initial thoughts?
I just wanted to come in there and say, Sprenko, as I'm listening to you both, I think it's fascinating how what we're talking about here is that support from family and friends becomes conditional sometimes, almost like people are waiting for external validation before they allow themselves to believe
Mm,
in you. Like being an artist, you
hmm.
paint, nobody shows up for you, nobody buys your work, they don't know who you are, you're an unknown quantity. But if for some reason you become successful, you attain success, all of a sudden everybody shows up because there's validation, external validation. But I think it's important to acknowledge that real support isn't reactive. It doesn't wait. It's relational. It's the quiet belief that shows up even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. That's what real support looks like.
I agree with you, Caroline. That's beautifully said. It doesn't have to come when it's cool to support. Support if and when you want to. Honestly, I felt this absence a few times, and I'm pretty sure, like you said, it's a universal experience. A lot of us have felt that, and in a way, I've felt more grateful than annoyed. You feel bad, you feel offended, but I've learned that all these emotions are meant to be felt, but to never hold them to heart. It's never worth it because most times you just beat yourself up, get angry, build resentment with people that you absolutely love. So recently I've had a mind shift where I've realized an essential part of powering through the struggle that changed the way I handle absence of friendly support. But before I dive in, I've witnessed you build a thriving art community, successfully run projects, and even become an author. Carolyn, how do you manage to push through when external support from close friends isn't forthcoming or exactly as you would like?
Great question. Honestly, I used to take it really personally. I'm going to be honest, and found that it limited me in a way, constrained me in a way. We put so much of ourselves into these things that we're building, and there is kind of an expectation, isn't there, that those who know us best will see it first. They'll see what we're building, they'll see the passion and be, alongside us in it. But I've learned that their silence doesn't always mean indifference. Sometimes it just means that people can't meet you where you are right now. We've touched on this already. So for me, a turning point was recognizing that validation and support are two very different things. I still value encouragement. Of course I do. I'm human, but I no longer rely on it as fuel. For me, my work is anchored in purpose now, not applause. So that's what guides my day. That's what drives me. It what's get me out of bed in the morning. So that purpose, that inner purpose, doesn't come from anyone else. It comes from me. And I remind myself that the people who need what I create will find it, even if they're not the people that I expected. And honestly, the absence of friendly support has built, I think, for me, a kind of resilience. I wouldn't trade it now. It's taught me self trust. It's forced me to create from within and to keep showing up, even in that silence, maybe despite of the silence. Make
That's
sense?
beautiful. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. But just Pim, how do you approach this though? You could have a different direction. I'm curious, does the absence of friendly support discourage you or motivates you like Karen?
Well, in the beginning, when I was younger, it was not the most pleasant thing always. But now, as I also agree with Caroline, over the years, you get a very thick skin and you also learn about yourself. I think it's the best way to learn about yourself is becoming an entrepreneur and see what you can do. And all those hits, yeah, they hit on your skin, but it will get thicker over time. And you will be more resilient in what you can do. And always remember why you started. That's what I do. I started for myself to improve my life, to do the things I like to do. There's a big difference when you, for example, you work for someone, you are put into a certain lane. When you're an entrepreneur, you can decide your own lane, your own rules. Of course, you have to perform. That is a big part of it, which I also like. So that's a good thing. But remember why you started. I think when you start to improve your life and do the things you have fun doing, which improves your life in a certain way, of course. If you remember yourself that every time you get hit or you have something that didn't work out the way you wanted, remind yourself, I started because of this and I want to do it because of this. Then next day doesn't have to be the same day. Just go where you left yesterday, go for it again. New day, new opportunities, new things. That's what I always remember myself of. And then the support of others, of course, it's always welcome when it's there, but when it's not there, uh, very ego maybe to say it, but I still have myself, and therefore I know I can continue doing what I'm doing. So that's how I, um, let's say, support myself to continuing and doing the things I do and love to do.
Yeah, that's great, Pim. And I can relate to both of you, and I'm glad that we are having this conversation because personally, the absence of friendly support comes with mixed feelings for me. The initial blow of, oh, okay, followed by the reminder that because something is nice doesn't mean it'll be for you. And that's okay. This moves me to stay dedicated to whatever goal I have. Because I realize that when you rely so much on external support to grow, challenges become more difficult to surpass, especially when people are not there to either cheer you on or assist you or just pull you through. So friendly support can speed up your growth, but the absence of it shouldn't mean the death of your dreams. That's what it is for me. At some point I almost printed this on a shirt. It's your dream, it's your journey, it's your vision, your mission. And I'm always grateful for friendly support, but I never allow entitlement to shine. I never want to feel like, oh, Caroline didn't support this particular work of mine. Oh, well, I thought she said we were friends. You know, I thought Pim was my best buddy, and now look at it. I've posted 3 times and he hasn't even liked them or commented on any of my posts. I try to have a mind shift, like both of you have shared. I'm doing it for me. It's my purpose, it's my goal, it's my vision. The honest truth is, people, even those closest to you, may not understand it because it's your journey. So it may take longer to achieve, but you'll never be more proud of yourself for making your dream a reality by yourself. But there's a question that comes to mind here for both of you is how does that translate to the relationships you have with those people? Does it in any way make you feel some sort of, okay, well, that's how it is? Well, when is your turn? Guess who's going to be backing away from supporting you? Or does that, not play any way? You still support whoever you want to support, however you can? Uh, Karen, you want to go first?
Oh, Sprenko, that's a loaded question, that is, and this is recorded, honestly. Um, let's be honest. You can't help but feel like that. We're human at the end of the day. And
Mm-hmm.
so when there is a consistency around not supporting you, you kind of start to feel the same. But you know what? Maybe we should see that as liberating. We talked about at the beginning, the finite resources that we all have. And, we tried to say that, maybe family and friends don't have enough time or don't feel that if they're giving support to us, they can support themselves or support somebody else. Maybe we need to shine that torch back onto ourselves because if we stop being the unconditional cheerleader, then we have more time as well. And maybe we're allowed to be discerning over what and who we support rather than supporting for the sake of it. So I think that that's a liberating thought here. And I want to circle back because I love what you said, Jess, because it's really about ownership, isn't it? And expectations. And we've talked a lot in Web3 via X Spaces about expecting too much, coming into relationship with these heavy expectations and expecting others, in this case, to carry your dream, to see your dream. And you know what? When you stop doing that, you realize how much lighter it feels to carry it yourself, to just carry it. You, no one else. There's no expectations. You're not looking over your shoulder at what anyone else is doing. You're just being you, showing up every day, doing what you do. And it may take longer, as you said, but it becomes yours in a way that shared applause can never replicate. And let's be honest, meaningless support, and I mean it kindly, but meaningless support from friends and family doesn't add value, doesn't add anything. If anything, it's massaging your ego. And actually, what you want are real, real people supporting you for real reasons that land with you, that you feel, that I think there's something incredibly grounding about that moment when we shift from waiting for validation to recognizing our own momentum. It's then that we start building from a deeper place, not for recognition, but from conviction. And Pim has touched on that as well. So it's a super important conversation we're having right now.
Absolutely agree with you. And as you were touching on there, something came to mind. It's beautiful when support is not done out of obligation, but passion, a need to nudge you to greatness. That's when it's most beautiful. So I love that you shared that, and I'm curious to hear what Pim has to say. Does it affect your friendships or relationships with the people who you sort of maybe not expect but would love their support and it doesn't come? How does it translate to the relationship you have with them?
There is not a lot of difference. I have, let's say, a combination of friends who are more entrepreneurial and the others are not. So I do get enough support mostly from the entrepreneurial friends. Because they're used to it. They have the same thoughts. They want to think deeper onto projects and not just hear how your workday was. I think that's also a
Mm,
difference. And for the other side, I know that they still support me and we have a lot of fun, which is also important eventually for going further with everything because it energizes you and it removes you a little bit out of your workflow for, let's say, a couple of hours so that you're refreshed the next day. It's good
yeah,
to have fun, which is quite logical, of course. And if people say, well, I really don't support it, well, that's up to them. That's their opinion, that's their choice, and that's totally fine. The same way, if I have something that I don't support, I will also say, well, that is not for me, and I don't support that. And then if they agree and understand, okay, that's not for you, that's your opinion, that's fine. Of course, nowadays sometimes you have more people, luckily not in my friends group, but overall around, um, where opinions are a little bit different than it used to be, and not every opinion apparently is there to be made. Well, with those people, I cut off real quickly, just because of I don't see a reason for conversation, and then there's a small chance I will keep supporting them. Not really intentional, but just over time, I slowly fade away from them
yeah,
for my reasons, and that's also fine. You will find people who you agree with, you disagree with, or you will find people who you can easily walk to the same door with, and you find people who you struggle to go to the same door with because of values or whatever.
mm,
And that's totally fine. Support yourself, support who you want to support. Don't ask for support from people who you don't know, really. So don't beg for it, I would say. Um, yeah, that's a little bit how I go through the year, week, day, month, however you want to call it, hour, when it comes to support.
nice. Thank you, Pim. And the truth is, support is great. When it comes from friends and loved ones, it can be powerful. It can push you beyond your wildest dreams. However, the absence can hurt as much as its presence can heal. And I personally believe your friends shouldn't have to ask for support if you're your friend's friend. Support can mean different things for different people, and every support counts towards growth. We rise by lifting others, and your friend's win doesn't mean your loss. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of someone's growth. It's a beautiful thing to be part of the reason someone gets to shine. So I'm just gonna say and leave it here as a parting thought for our listeners. When support comes, embrace it, and if it doesn't, keep going like you're the only one you've got, and keep shining. There you have it. If you've enjoyed this episode, let us know in the comments and social media. We're always excited to read from you. And with my favorite co hosts, Pim and Carolyn, it's been great. Until next time, keep growing, keep shining, even though we are probably going to be the only ones to cheer you on. But have a great one, guys.